Okay, well, let's get started. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for Cracking the Internship Code Insights from Students. We have a panel of rock stars here today, experiential learning rock stars. So this is a panel discussion sponsored by the School of Natural Sciences and Mathematics and our Career Success Center. My name is Paul Krawitz. I'm the director of the NSM Career Success Center. First, we want to thank everybody for attending. We expect that you'll learn a lot of great tips and suggestions for obtaining an internship and how to manage an internship and be successful in an internship. We'd also like to thank our invited panelists today, who our moderator will introduce here in a minute. And so I'd like to start with our introduction of the moderator. So that is Noel Papali. Noel is a Master of Science student in Business Analytics here at UTD. He earned a Bachelor of Technology degree in Mechanical Engineering from TKM College of Engineering. In addition to being a master's student, Noel works as a career services peer educator for the NSM Career Success Center. And before joining our team, he worked in industry for 3 years as a mechanical engineer or as an executive engineer for MRF Corporation in Chennai, India. So Noel, take it away.
Thanks for that introduction, Paul, and welcome everyone. So I'll just have the agenda for the meeting just shared. I hope everyone's able to see the presentation. So yeah, the agenda would be introduction, as Paul said. Then we'll be getting some introduction on the panelists, and then we'll be having the questions from the moderator, that's me. And towards the end, we'll have the Q&A. Before we start, I have some guidelines for the attendees. I would request everyone to mute your mics and turn off your cameras unless you're speaking during the Q&A. Now, you can use the chat function in the Teams to ask questions, or you can raise your hands and we'll come to you during the Q&A. Also, please keep the comments and questions respectful in the chat when speaking to the group. Also, if you feel like you need subtitles, there's closed captioning available, and you can see that at the top of the screen. You have 3 dots, and when you navigate to the language section, you'll be having an option to turn on live captions. With that said, let me welcome the panelists and give a brief introduction about them. First up, we have Amog Sanashati. He's pursuing his bachelor's in data science and brings a wealth of experience from interning in different organizations like Milliman, Vanguard, and Hilton. And if I'm right, he's going to start one next week at Capital One. So welcome, Amog. Next up, we have Sana Khan. Sana is doing her bachelor's in biology, and she had also secured a competitive Archer Fellowship program, which gave her the opportunity to engage in a semester-long internship. And her professional experience spans from being a health policy intern at the Legislative Office of Congressman Lloyd Doggett to doing impactful researches as an intern at UT Southwestern. She's currently working as a medical assistant at the K Dermatology and Wellness Institute. So welcome, Sana. Now, we also have Vamsi Kota, who's a graduate student currently pursuing his master's in business analytics following his master's in his bachelor's in computer science. Vamsi is currently interning as an AI engineer at the Global Technology Solutions Incorporated. Vamsi is also very active in LinkedIn, where he kind of shares his insights on contemporary topics in the field and helps fellow enthusiasts. Last but not the least, we also have Maitri Unjia, who's pursuing her master's in molecular and cell biology, building up on her bachelor's in molecular biology. Maitri has gained hands-on experience in these fields by interning at MedPace and Quest Diagnostics. With that said, I welcome all the panelists to the discussion, and I hope we have a fruitful discussion that kind of help all the students answer their questions. Now, I'm going to dive straight into the questions since we have a limited amount of time, but a lot of questions. So the first question that I would be asking would be, what are the steps you guys took to make sure your resume was ATS compliant? Did you kind of tailor your resumes for each job application, or did you identify different positions that would like group us a number of titles and kind of started crafting a resume for each position? Why don't we start with Amuk?
Yeah, sure. So whenever I'm building my resume, one thing I look at is the job description, and I look for keywords that they highlight. For example, whenever I'm looking for like a Python developer job, they talk about specific packages that they want, students or employees to have, and I try and highlight that within my projects or past experiences. So keywords is definitely a good place to start when it comes to formatting your resume.
Mhm. Okay, that's great answer. Yeah, keywords are definitely definitely the ones that kind of helps your resume kind of pass the ATS. What about Sana? Do you have something to add on to that?
Yeah, I could try to answer the second part of the question. So, in my experience, I've definitely had almost like a template that I could use for my CVs and resumes, but I do tailor it to depending on what position I'm applying to. And it does change a lot. Like if I've done like research positions and my resume looks a lot different. And in those positions, I'm going to highlight more relevant work. And versus when I was doing policy work or advocacy work, I do like rearrange a lot of the information, and you can list some of the same things, but the descriptions can change where you highlight different competencies and skills that you can bring to the job.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is when you have like a research person, you'll be kind of highlighting all the research stuff that you have done and kind of matching the skills with that. And if you're doing like a policy kind of stuff, you'll be getting your resume aligned in that and kind of highlighting the work you've done in that section. Yeah, that makes sense because when you're checking with the ATS, you kind of filter based on the keywords. So if you're having the experience in that field, yeah, you want to highlight that points. So yeah, that makes sense. Does Vamshi or Maitri have anything to add to that, or we can move to the next question? Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll just be real quick with it. But I actually recently learned about ATS and how they affect the resume application process and stuff like that. And I feel like since I made changes of my own, I've seen a lot of progress in my applications. Obviously, just as the other panelists said, you need to make sure that your resumes have a standard format. And this means that no fancy pictures and things like that, which could probably hinder the AI from tracking and filtering out your resume. In addition, just make sure that you have keywords from your job description, as Amok said, and that should really help you land those job applications.
Yeah, makes sense. We're also kind of trying to create awareness about ATS because most of the students that come in kind of not familiar with ATS. But yeah, definitely we should get more aware about ATS, and like Michael was saying, just a basic template is the best way to go. Paul always used to say, the uglier the resume, the better that is. So yeah, that's the way to go. So moving on to the next question. How did you go about searching for job opportunities or internship opportunities? Did you have like a specific platform or strategies that you kind of use? Maybe like looking for jobs in LinkedIn or other job platforms in certain professional societies or something like that. How about we go with Vamsi on this?
Yeah. So I'm not the right person to answer this question because I had previous experience in India, and it's sort of so focused on a niche visualization software. So a lot, if you see our university's curriculum, it teaches us Tableau, which is a very, very powerful software, but very expensive for companies as well. But I worked on Looker Studio back in India. So Looker Studio is a free visualization software that comes with your Google subscription, like your Google Cloud subscription. So my company was like keen on using it because it was very inexpensive and it would like hook up to BigQuery directly. So that's what I worked on. And a company here also, they wanted to work on that, and they wanted to hire people, but they could not find anyone because it was not widely used. So sometimes being that big fish in a small pond helps, I guess. I mean, that could not be a universal advice. I mean, it might have worked out for me luckily, but yeah, it could work out if you try that. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it's just a numbers game. You try everything, and you try a lot of applications. I mean, with 3 to 4% of applications being selected for interviews, I think yeah, you should have every kind of technology on your resume and just apply. That's all.
Okay. So in your case, I guess you had that talent or the niche thing that the company was looking for, and you kind of came across this, and that made a difference. But what about
Yeah.
Maitri? How do you say your experience was on that?
So back when I was looking for internships, I was looking mostly for summer internships, and that's like the keyword that I used when I was searching things on Google. And when you search things on Google, the first websites you get are like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and things like that. And honestly, they have some really good filters on their search bar. So I would filter out location, like start time, what exactly job position I'm looking for, and things like that. Like you can filter out a bunch of things for summer. And if you learn how to play around with that, it would be great. Another option is LinkedIn, obviously. So if you're experienced with working in LinkedIn, you can directly contact recruiters or maybe just ask around with their alumni or other people who are doing things that you wish to do in the future. So definitely try to network because the human to human interaction is definitely superior to any AI. But other than that, like work around the different job portals that are available on the internet, and it's a great way to start.
Okay, so Indeed, Glassdoor, all are like options that you could find. Okay, what about Sana and Amo? Do you have anything different from what Vamsi and Maitri had shared that might like add value to the discussion?
No, they actually covered most of it, honestly. One other thing that I do is usually like if I know I'm interested in a particular company, I go directly on their website and look at those job postings. But same process going through LinkedIn, figuring out what they work on, and then just using all the resources that are available.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Sorry, if
Yeah,
I
go
could
ahead,
say
Sana.
one small like tidbit, as someone who I guess hasn't really interned as much as like the other panelists in industry, I think a lot of like my internships have been more like towards research or policy in DC. I've learned that for some of those things, there's other more like not so well-known platforms where they post such things. So when I was in DC, I knew I really wanted to work for the government, and I found through someone who had done that kind of work that the House and Congress actually has its own like dashboard where they put positions that are opening up, and that's not something that I would have known otherwise. So just something Maitri said, it really helps to know someone who has gone down the path that you are interested in. So reaching out to those people, and you can actually do that on LinkedIn. You can search for alumni from a place that you have been. So even like UTD alumni who have maybe like done the Archer program, for example, you can search for them and reach out to ask questions. And then what Amok said is also like very applicable for research. I would just go to, I know UT Southwestern was close and they do like really great research. And so I just like cold email a lot of people whose research I was interested in. And that's how I was able to get a position.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like sometimes reaching out to people kind of helps to bypass the ATS that's what I like to say. It kind of gives you an edge of the others because kind of having to meet with the person, they kind of take a look at your resume and that's kind of given. So yeah, good discussion. Moving on to the next one. did you have an interview? And I'm thinking, yes, you did, but how did you prepare for that? What kind of tips would you say would help you to perform better in those interviews? Yeah, any one of you could volunteer to answer first.
Sure, I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
So, most interviews are going to have something called behavioral questions, where they just want to learn more about you. So this is usually where you would give your elevator pitch, talk about some of your past experiences, and just some general, understanding about who you are as a person. So they understand, is this someone I want to work with, for the entire summer. And besides that, it sort of depends on what your specific field is. So for example, if you're a computer science major, you might have to do some leak code style interviews where it's just a technical assessment. Someone else who's maybe majoring in biology might do, maybe you can add on this. Maybe they have to talk about some of their lab experiences or some of the more technical skills that relate to your industry. So it just comes down to the general structure of how interviews are in your desired industry.
Okay. Yeah, definitely behavioral questions play a big role. They kind of help the interviewer kind of assess the applicant. So yeah, if Maitri or anyone else want to kind of add on that.
Yeah, sure. So in case you have never taken an interview, let me just give you a quick rundown as to what usually happens. When this is based on my experience, so I'm just giving you a first-hand review of things. Usually interviews are either 2 steps or 3 steps. 3 is going pretty far, and that's kind of a stretch, but usually it's 1 or 2. The first step of the interview is usually a call with either the HR or primary recruiter who goes through all of your information and asks you things like, how did you find the company? Or like, why are you interested in this role? So that's like basically the first checkpoint of any interview session. And if you pass this interview session, then they promote you into either having a video call or a face-to-face meeting with a group of people, or maybe a more senior recruiter for that company. So for the internships that I interviewed, I had to use a lot of my knowledge about the technical lab skills, as Moog said, since I'm a biology major. People would usually ask me about what I knew about working in a lab and like whether I was able to follow protocols and things like that. But for the more recent internship that I have with MedPace, since it's a more corporate role, I was asked about my team building skills and how organized I was and how well I can manage my time. So it really depends on the type of company that you intern for or apply for, and their questions will be dependent to the role and the job description that they posted. So be ready with first your introduction speech about who you are. That's probably the most strongest point that you have, and then work your way through different practice questions that you can search up online. And you can honestly, sometimes if you have a scenario question, as he previously mentioned, and if you don't have anything, you can always just make up a story. Creativity is also a great way to go with things if you can back up your answers pretty well.
So yeah, like we say, be thorough with the job description, be thorough with your resume, what you have given in your resume, be able to speak a lot more about that. Yeah. So what about Sana and Wamsi? Do you have anything else that might like more than what Maitri and Amok had mentioned, like specific to your areas?
Yeah, I think Maitri mentioned how a lot of the interviews now have like a virtual aspect to it, whether it's a phone call or through video interview. And I think it's like a lot more difficult to kind of portray yourself in those ways. So one thing I would really say is like be like super, super excited. It comes off as less virtually. So they need to know you're genuinely interested and you like really want the position, or that you are a great fit for it. So be extra enthusiastic, energetic, because it dampens a little as it goes through virtually to the other side. So
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Like how you portray yourself during the interview makes it a whole lot of difference. Even if you're talking a lot, if you're not smiling, if you're not giving a good vibe, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of takes a toll. So yeah. Moving on.
Just
Okay.
wanted to add something about that. So in most technical interviews, though, if you just, instead of just answering the question, I'd also recommend adding a couple of other things, related to the question that you were asked. Maybe you could give them one approach and give them one more approach that is better in terms of the technical aspect of it or something that would reinforce their thought that you are good enough technically, right? Because a lot of companies have this. I mean, of course, you'll be competing with 5 to 10 people who are technically good. You just want to be better than those other 5 to 10 peers of yours. So just make sure to like outline your thought process and give them more examples or add new things to your answer. So that's something I'd recommend.
Yeah, it's not always about answering the question. It's also about how your thought process work, how you kind of approach the question. Yeah, that's even if you're not able to find the final answer, how you approach might be like something of interest to the manager, and that could be the some edge that you have over the other applicants. Yeah. Now, how do you guys benefit from the internship experience? Like, what was the experience, and how kind of it did kind of help you find your niche in the career that you're trying to follow, and how did it make you more career ready? It's open to any one of you. Maybe Sana can start with that this time.
So I'm sorry.
Wait, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Ramshi.
So in terms of career, though, once I've put this on my LinkedIn, I think a lot of people. So previously, it was me sending out like connection requests. It's now people sending me connection requests. So it was a bit. It felt nice for a while that I got a lot of connection requests, and one more thing is a couple, not couple actually, I think 3 or 4 recruiters reached out to me after this. So to talk about potential roles in their companies. I did not get into any of that because get into any of those jobs because they required a lot of experience. But this is something really helpful. Like once you put your internship on your LinkedIn as an experience, once recruiters start looking for people to hire, you would be the first one to appear, because the algorithm, it filters out people with the most experience for them, right? So that's something that was something really helpful that I got from the internship. And of course, the experience and the ability to solve more problems. Like previously, when I was doing just my master's, not an internship, I couldn't like do any side projects of my own because I did not have that what the thought process or the ability to solve that problem. Here solving a problem in my company, that really gave me that ability to solve and find and solve problems on my own, like finding my own side projects to work on, and putting them on GitHub, all of that. So it kind of it acts like a catalyst to your learning experience, to be honest. That's what I wanted to add.
You're muted.
Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, it definitely kind of shapes your thought process and kind of makes you much more ready to tackle those real world problems. Yeah. Go ahead, Sana. You're going to say something before Vamsi. Yeah.
My experience is a little different because I'm not going into a career per se or a job looking for a job right now. I'm a pre-med student and I'm going to med school. But I will say one of the things that I've been asked about the most in all my med school interviews, and there have been a ton. It's always like my internship experience. And I think it's because one, I've done them in very different fields, like a lot, like it's not just research or science based. I've like explored other things that I was interested in through internships that I necessarily wouldn't have through my major. And that's something that stands out. And also, I think it makes me as an applicant a lot more well-rounded because any like field that you're going to, experience will always like add on to the knowledge you bring, the skills you bring, and just like the way you speak even and you interact with other people. And I think it shows. So that's like one big thing that I've learned, and it's always like fun for me to talk about those things too. I like don't enjoy interviews. I don't think a lot of people do. So having to talk about like things that you've done in the past that you're proud of, and things that you've learned versus like just like technical and like other boring behavioral questions, I think it really adds to having a better interview experience when you have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I guess internships also let you kind of have a feel of the industry and kind of helps you to know whether is this what you want to pursue or is this not something you want to pursue. So yeah, that's a nice point. How about Amog and Maitri? Do you have any other aspects that you kind of want to share with the group?
Honestly, I think both of them covered it really well. Yeah, just to say, like it introduces you to different perspectives and different ways that problems are approached in the industry. For example, like I've worked in 3 different industries and they all tackle the same sort of issues from different, angles. And overall, it just helps create a wider perspective for you in the future because now you've learned so much from different perspectives.
Okay. Looking back.
Yeah.
Oh,
let me
okay.
just add a real point.
Yeah, sure.
Quick. Over the past 4 years, at least in my journey, I've had 3 internships, and every time I come out of an internship, I feel like I have leveled up. I know it sounds like a video game, but that's kind of how it is in real life sometimes. And it's really nice to see the progress. Like when I look back at my first internship, I somehow can't relate to that May 3 to the one that's there right now, because I have learned a lot, and it has pushed me towards the career that I want to be in. And not only does it help lengthen your resumes, you gain a lot of connections at the different interviews, at the different job postings and things that you tackle over the way. You also become a better candidate when you compare it to somebody who hasn't had any internship experience in the past. So I feel like overall, you should always apply for internships during your undergrad and even sometimes your grad years. It really helps make you the best version of who you can be in your line of career.
Yeah, the experience start piling up and you kind of don't relate to the person that you had before, that it kind of transforms you into a new person. Like Vamsi was saying, it's kind of a catalyst that kind of starts a whole new different process. Yeah. So looking back to the whole internship search process, what would be that one piece of advice that you would give the students that could help them get an edge over the other applicants, or like would help them navigate better through the entire journey of internship search process? How about we start with Amok?
I think we had mentioned this somewhere earlier that networking is a great way to stand out, right? Like building that connection, whether that's with a recruiter or an employee at the company, is a great way to separate yourself from the pack. It makes your application stand out against the hundreds who are also applying. So taking that time to really understand what they're looking for, building that connection, I think is a way to set yourself up for success. And it's a good skill to develop because there's never going to be a point where you have to stop interacting with people or stop networking. So it's just something you continuously develop over time.
Okay. How about the other guys? Do you have like something that you think would be?
Yeah. So I have 2 things. First is try every way you can to find a job, apply, network, reach out, cold emailing, LinkedIn messaging, whatever. Like try to find people, try to see your relatives. If somebody in your somebody of your relatives are working in a big company, ask them for referrals in their companies. Try everything. Something will work out. And if you just don't give up over the next 6 months because of this bad market, but generally it would take 3 months in a good kind of market environment. But right now it's around 6 months. Just try everything, because you never know what will. Because once you apply, the chance is like 3 to 4%, right? On a LinkedIn job posting. On a networking, it's like you can't find people who are genuinely interested to speak to you because they have things on their own. So it's like you have high chance, of course, while networking and applying for a job, but you can't find people very easily, but you can find job postings easily. It's just that something hits somewhere, something will hit somewhere. So you should just play that numbers game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's also about perseverance, not taking rejections personally, and kind of moving on to the next. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course. I saw a post from a recruiter on a tweet from a recruiter recently. So he told that he got like 2,000 applications for a role, and he just like randomly dropped 1,000 applications without even looking at it, because
Okay.
he just said that I don't want unlucky people to be working in my company. So things like that happen. They're human too, and they might overlook your very good application. So it's not about you, basically.
That's kind of bad. I feel bad for those 1,000 applications that kind of got dropped. But yeah, like you said, it's human nature. It's not always bad. So yeah.
Yeah, I
What
can
about
like add on to that point. I was gonna say, as he said, like in this economy, you're gonna need a lot of patience with applying for internships. And back in the day, I think I would give up after like applying to 10 places, be like, okay, well, I guess we're not doing anything now. But that's my piece of advice. Don't give up. Apply to 100 internships. You'll definitely get at least 2 replies from there. And yeah, I think Vamsi pretty much covered most of that
more
part, the
advice?
application part of it. But yeah, don't give up. You should
Yeah.
never.
Okay. Moving on to like pivoting on this networking part. Uh, what are your thoughts on informational interviews, kind of reaching out to people on the roles that you kind of want to take up, and kind of asking them about what's the work culture, what's the kind of work that they do on a daily basis? How do you see that kind of helps in the final getting in terms? Do you want to
So
start on that?
I tried this approach. So it's the first approach you'll find on JSOM's job search and networking page on Career
Okay.
Management Center. Even I think it's still there on their webpage. So yeah, you could do that, but still, again, it's a numbers game. A lot of people, they'll accept your connection request, but of course, you should understand that they're busy with their own personal and professional lives, so they'll not reply to every message. And like I said, we are not the only ones reaching out to them, right? Like, assuming you have 1,000 students from UTD sending them messages, 1,000 students from UNT sending them messages. Like, it's just, I mean, you should. It's really difficult for them to filter out the best message out of that, and it's just a courtesy for them also. It's not like a requirement for them to like reply to you. So it's again a numbers game. If you find 100 people, message all of them, just change their name on that message template you have, send them all messages, and somebody might reply, and then make sure to like reach out to them at the right time that they specified, and like talk to them. Yeah, that would and add them to your contact list, and set a reminder for that company that they're working in, so that they can easily refer you whenever there is a job posting. So that's something you could do.
Okay. So also, isn't these informational interviews kind of a way to know more about the paths that you thought were not like path that did not exist? Like, for example, Sana kind of said earlier that she did not know about some of the job postings that were happening in the government until she kind of met with someone and they kind of directed her towards that. So, is that also something that people could get out of these interviews? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I always ask in an interview, like if it's a position I'm interested in, I'll like one ask like, oh, what drew you to this position or to this company or whatever it is that you're applying to. And then I will also ask like, oh, what was the path that you took to get into the position that you are? And I've found that most often people like talking about themselves. So it's not like a bad question to ask. And you also get a lot of information out of it. And I guess like the other advice I would just give people is that don't be afraid to ask for help. Most often in my experiences, I've like if I've succeeded in anything, it's because like I like reached out to someone and got help. Like I had no idea how to write like a CV when I first started it, and I like just reached out to someone who I knew had like succeeded in like getting internships and stuff, and they were so kind in just like sending me their own CV. I know a lot of like we're scared to ask because we like don't know what the response is going to be, but like it really doesn't hurt. Um, so yeah, don't be afraid to ask. Most people want to help and try to reach out to people you have like some sort of connection with, whether it's like an alum for, you know, your university or a place you worked at. And then also if you've interned somewhere before, really try to keep in touch with either your supervisor, your colleagues there, like send them, you know, occasional emails or like check in with them or give them updates about your life. And I think it's a really good way to continue having a connection that you like work so hard to build in the first place.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great discussion. So that kind of wraps up the questions that I had, and we'll be kind of moving on towards the Q&A from participants. So while we wait for that, uh, some of the panelists, just an announcement, like some of the panelists might need to like get out of the meeting before the end. So if you guys have the panelists are kind of fine with it, you could just have your emails kind of posted in the chat, and if uh, the students have any questions, they could kind of reach out to you and with mails. So with that, we'll start with the Q&A, and I'll just give a brief intro about NSM so that everyone kind of feels aware of the services that we are sharing. So just a moment. So here at the NSM Career Center, we're kind of helping the students to navigate themselves through the entire job search process. And we have a lot of services that we kind of provide. We have like resume review, cover letter writing, and making them how to target each roles, how to optimize your LinkedIn, which is a powerful tool, and what are the resources that you could use for your job research. And all these resources are available in our website, but if you make an appointment and reach out to us, we'll be able to provide like personalized information that would help you kind of move your career forward and like personalized strategies for you so that how can your resume kind of stand better when comparing to other applicants. So if you guys feel like you need some help in this direction, feel free to reach out to us, send a mail to Paul or myself, or you can get an appointment through Handshake. All right, with that said, we'll move on to the Q&A now. Just go through the questions that we might have on the chat, or if you guys raise your hand, you can unmute yourselves and then ask the question directly to the panel.
I see a question in the chat right now that I can go over. So I personally have not taken summer classes and done a summer internship together, but I'm currently taking like regular semester classes and doing an internship. So I think that basically is the same thing at that point. The best thing to do, you can balance this well by speaking with your manager at work and figuring out a schedule that can help align, like, so you don't have work during the same time as classes, obviously. And I feel like most managers in companies, especially if you're an intern, they're really flexible with school schedules because they understand that you need to pay attention in classes, like get good grades, take those exams, and things like that. But also contribute towards the company and learn at your internship. So pretty sure the best way to do this is by speaking with your manager and your colleagues, whoever else is at work, and try to find the best schedule for yourself and the company. And then you can balance all three things or both of those things together pretty well.
Yeah. So
I
anyone else
wanted
wants
to
to weigh
add
in?
to
Yeah.
this. The very first question was about the classes, right? So right now I'm doing an internship and I'm taking classes. I'm not sure if if anyone is from JSOM, but in JSOM, the courses are particularly tailored for professionals and people from industry. So we have classes from 7 to 9:45 in the evening. So most of the time, if you're doing a full-time internship, it's from 9 to 5, or sorry, 8 to 5, right? So after 5, you could basically just attend classes because the timings are right fit. So I'd say I'd recommend you to check all the timings available for classes. So probably take a class that is in the evening and work on assignments or any coursework in the weekend or in the nights. I think that would really help, but I wouldn't recommend taking more than two. Two is already stressful for me. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, go ahead.
about that, I'm pretty sure if you're an undergrad student, it's probably really harder to figure this out because you have a lot more classes than graduate students. So that's why usually during my undergrad year, I was doing it during summer and not taking classes during summer as well, so I can focus like 100% on the internship.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
go
did
ahead.
most of my experiences during the semester while taking classes, and it's intense, but I would say if you have the option and you're deciding between classes, like there's a lot of online class options available now. So maybe pick that, and it's more um, flexible that way. And also, if I'm not wrong, there is an internship course that you can enroll it. So you get like credit towards your degree, and then also like you're able to do the internships. And then I've always been like very grateful for whoever I'm working with because they're super understanding that you're a student. And they know like the reason you are doing the internship is like to succeed in the future. And part of that is like doing one in your classes. So they're pretty flexible about like working around your schedule as well. Also, I have to head out, so I'm just going to answer the next question really quickly. Um, the question is, do you have anything specific that you say or do during an interview to make yourself stand out? One thing I have learned is that you can really guide the interview where you want it to go. So if there's something that you've done in the past that you're really proud of or you think is like unique and would make you stand out, like you can guide your like interview in that direction where you can like talk about that thing. So when you're giving like your elevator pitch, just make sure you say like, oh, like I'm super interested in this, and then they'll like ask you a question about it, and then you'll have an opportunity to talk about that like unique experience that you've had.
Yeah, kind of pick the things that you want the interview to direct be about and kind of have that highlighted during your elevator pitch, like Sana said. So kind of get the attention of the person being interviewed by, and she kind of starts talking about that, she or he. Yeah. So moving on
I want to
to,
answer
yeah,
Gonzalez's question. So I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, but the question was if the goal of internships is to gain experience, but most of them require previous experience. This is what's happening right now because of less number of jobs. Their recruiters and companies are getting more picky because they know people will apply for internships who have previous experience and they want to filter out the right people. So I would like to say that experience doesn't necessarily mean only working for a company, right? Like experience in your clubs. Clubs are you can easily get into clubs in your university. Try to get a position in a club, maybe try to work on a project, put that on GitHub. Even a project that you worked on, an open source project. Talking about the technical stuff at least. Uh, Working on an open source project or a project of your own, you could add that to your GitHub or profile, and you could say that, and that counts as experience. You could add that to your resume. You could write bullet points for that with action items, right? That actually counts as experience. So I'd say that that's one way you could build experience and then apply for internships. But most of recruiters, when they post a job, it's more like a wish list, not a requirement, because they'll they'll have all the technologies from A to Z on that job description. So I'd say it's not mandatory to have all of that skills, but it'd be nice to tick most boxes. So I'd say just work on skills, work on projects, put that on your resume, and then yeah, I mean that would maximize your chances.
Yeah, I guess you kind of perfectly answered the question what Gonzalez was asking. Moving on to the next question, there's one intended just for Maitri. Did you immediately pursue your master's following your BS, and how did your biology BS help you in the non-laboratory internships you participated in?
I was just typing that up, but I guess now that you brought it up, I can say it. So yes, I did continue with my master's right after my bachelor's. I did it through the fast track program at UTD, so it was just one extra year after my bachelor's. And that really helped speed things up for me because I personally did not want to go into medicine, and I also did not want to work in a lab like for the rest of my life. So I was trying to find a balance between the two, and I figured that if I complete my master's a little earlier, I can look out for corporate opportunities earlier than most other candidates who would probably spend 2 more years doing their master's and then search out in industry. But my first experience with the non-lab internship was actually with a NGO where I was given the role of an intern coordinator. And it's completely unrelated to biology, but it helped me show the people at work and also like future interviewers that I was able to hold a corporate role in a way and also focus on my studies, which was biology. And that's something that I really used for a lot of interviews after that. I told them that I can manage a lot of data, I can work with people, a lot of organizational skills. That's where it all came from. But I still love science. So that's how I got into the internship that I'm right now. And even the one at Quest Diagnostics, that one is where I learned that I don't want to be in a lab for the rest of my life. So every internship, I do learn something new. And I finally found a good balance of it working at MedPace, which is a CRO. And since they work with clinical trials, which is still science, and they manage them, it's like the best of both worlds for me. So that's how I found that position. And yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. I'll reply to that.
Yeah, so it's like doing an internship kind of transforms who you are. So every experience kind of is something new to you and it kind of brings out what you want. So moving on to the next question. Mia is saying, I'm currently a freshman studying data science. Do you have any recommendations for people who are early in their undergraduate career who want to develop their portfolio? Amog, I think this would be one best for you. You're muted, Amog.
Thank you for that. So starting off as a freshman, one of the best ways to gain experience is by getting involved with clubs. So for example, ACM, AIS, FinTech UTD are all really big clubs on campus that emphasize the technical skills that you're going to need later on in your career. And they also give you really, valuable projects that you can talk about during interviews and show that you have experience working with a bunch of different technology. So I recommend getting involved with clubs. And besides that, also just, taking time to do your own personal projects. Data science is such a broad field that, there are so many different avenues. You just need to find something that you're really interested in and just focus on that. Do personal projects, do research, find any way to get involved and gain experience with that particular field. And then I guess the second part of the question was what platforms. So I personally use LinkedIn the most, but I always look at company websites like I mentioned earlier, and you always find good events like this one on Handshake. So it's a good mix of everything.
Okay. Yeah. So
I'd like to add on to that question. I'm not doing data science intern. I'm working on more of a deployment of all the data science solutions that we have in our company. But to be honest, I think you're starting as an undergrad, I'm guessing. I'm sorry, name is Mia, right? Okay. So Mia, I think you're starting as an undergrad and want to develop your portfolio. That's a great start. I didn't know what data science means in my first year. So you're already ahead of me in that. So I think you could start with going to Kaggle. In Kaggle, you'll have basic competitions. I'll just type it in. Uh, on Kaggle, you'll have basic competitions and guided notebooks. So you'll be able to understand the basics of data science and then try to do a competition. Of course, you'll not be able to be even in the top 200 because of the intense competition. I'm not discouraging you, but that's very, very competitive. But once you do a couple of competitions, you'll get so good, like so good compared to 90% of the people applying to data science jobs, even people with experience. So I think going to Kaggle and working on competitions, you'll find people you could network with over there and collaborate with them to work on competitions. So I think that would be a really great start for your career. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. It does, Vamshi. It does. That's the whole point of this entire panel discussion. So uh, there's one more question that's for Amog. How's your experience working as a data scientist, analyst, intern? What is most common programming language you have to work with? Any tips on finding data science analyst internships?
Yeah. So starting off with the first one about my experience. So it really varies a lot between companies. So for example, my first internship was at Hilton and I was working with the HR team doing data analytics for them. So a lot of my work there was automating some of the processes that they already had and evaluating things like job openings across the continental United States. Um, and after that, my second internship at Vanguard was in AI research. So that was, a completely different field focused on an entirely different skill set. So it really depends on what the company's looking for and how they want to use you for that summer that you're interning. And then moving on to the languages part. So the most useful ones that I've seen are Python, R, and SQL. You're going to see a good mix of these across internships. So it really depends on what that company is using specifically. I've mostly worked in Python and SQL in industry, but R is also really good to know because the skills translate very well. And lastly, for the tips part, I mean, we've been going over this for
Yeah,
most of this conversation, but I think networking is very helpful, and also just taking the time to figure out what exactly you want to go into, so you have a directed focus when you're approaching like applications.
okay. So I guess we're kind of reached to the end of the questions and we'll be wrapping up now. I want to thank everyone for joining the meeting, all the students and all the participants, all the panelists, especially for taking the time out of your busy schedules and kind of giving it back to the students so that they can it could be kind of helpful for them during their job search. So thanks for joining everyone and thank you again, panelists. Paul, would
Okay.
you want anything to add at the end?
Thank you, everyone. Excellent, excellent information. The goal of this was to empower students so that they're well prepared for their internships and to be successful in their internships. Y'all provided excellent, excellent tips. So thank you very much.
All right,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
joining.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.